Today's guest is Elisabeth Swan. Elisabeth is a co-founder of Just in Time Cafe with a mission to cultivate a hub where problem solvers connect, share, and grow. She's the co-author of the Problem Solvers Toolkit, a surprisingly simple guide to your Lean Six Sigma journey, and co-host of the Just in Time Cafe podcast. She's a 30-plus year veteran of the continuous improvement world who performed with ImprovBoston back in the day. As a Lean Six Sigma consultant, she uses improv every day. Here's our guest, Elisabeth Swan. Elisabeth, welcome to the podcast. We touched a little bit about who you were in the intro, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do?
Yeah, after 30 plus years, there's a lot in there, and it's a little blurry, but I would say lots of training, design, consulting, you name it. And then the past 9 years trying to take what I did in the classroom with my colleague Tracy and bring that online. So taking, what I don't know about you, but I thought however many years ago, there's no way you can bring in-person instruction online, but realizing, well, there's pieces that are good for folks to have online. So doing that for the past 9 years, and that's been a really interesting odyssey in terms of really getting into what makes good instruction. How do people really learn? So that's been cool. But yeah, every facet of the Lean Six Sigma industry that I could get myself into, I've been there.
Good deal. Well, before we get started in the interview, can you share with us a quote or a mantra from one of your favorite leaders?
I would love to. My favorite quote is, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that didn't work." And that's Thomas Edison, a different kind of leader, but he was experimenting like we are, and that's a great attitude.
A leader in innovation and invention, absolutely, and wise words. So, one of my goals of this podcast is to help other lean leaders resonate with your experiences. So, can you kind of tell us a story about why or how you chose the profession, what you're doing right now?
I would boil it down to that I see myself as a translator. Uh, in the same way that for me to understand things, I've got to break it down. I realized, well, when I break it down for myself, now I'm actually in a better position to teach that to somebody else. So when I hear jargon, when I hear tech terms, when something feels kind of like it's in its own club, I want to break into that and figure out, well, how do I make that understandable? And that's kind of what resonates for me, is doing that for others.
Yeah, so it would be like an example would be taking this cloud or this mist and distilling it down to a glass of water that anybody could drink. Is that a fair
Yeah,
way
I
to
like
think
that.
through it?
I like that imagery.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you. um, can you share with us maybe kind of what your like the aha moment was for you when you were going through this, like when it all just clicked and said, "Yeah, I know I'm doing the right thing right now."
Um, there's a lot of them. There's one I remember working with a child care center, and they were trying. The office manager was just looking at everyone ordering their own supplies, people ordering, paper plates when they had dishwashers, just a lot of rogue activity, and she couldn't get a handle on it. And she knew they were wasting money, and they were desperately trying to, open up more childcare centers. This was for low-income families and really trying to help a very challenged population. And people were calling bosses, and everyone had more positional authority than she did, until finally she told them, well, if we save X amount, then we can afford the mortgage on another childcare center. And suddenly she had people calling up and saying, I found cheaper soap. I found a much better source for for food supplies, whatever it was. And she realized, oh, and I remember thinking, I have got to be more clear with folks about the purpose of what you're doing. Just that if people understand why, and you can tie it to, for the sake of what, why are we doing this? That makes all the difference in the world to people. And that just permeates. I think for me, everything since then was just like never forget that.
Well, you're giving them agency to the success of the organization. It's not just I can't order soap because Elizabeth said that I can't. That's authority. That's not engagement. But when you say, "Here's what we're trying to do, and I need your help," essentially you're asking them to come along.
That's nice. The word agency, that you tied them to the mission. People became agents, to extend that. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's a great story. And I know that people that listen to the podcast, that everyone has that one moment where it just absolutely clicks for them, or they're like, "Yeah, I want to do that again." It's like someone who plays golf. The reason that people can be absolutely awful at golf, the reason they go back out and play golf again and again is they get that one shot where everything just lines up perfectly. It feels great, it looks great, and it's an awesome experience. And you want to experience it again. There's also a lot of shots in golf where we end up in the woods, or we end up in the water, we end up in the sand, or we end up where we just can't find our ball. Uh, what was kind of your setback moment with lean or continuous improvement, and how did it affect you, and what did you learn from it?
It's a great question. Uh, I did a lot of work. It spanned over 15 years of working with Starwood hotels and resorts. That we were the It was the first big rollout of Lean Six Sigma in the hospitality industry, and 800 properties all over the world. And this one was in Sardinia. This was where we were. Costa Smeralda, I think it's like one of the favorite places of the Aga Khan. I mean, it was just like storied and gorgeous, and they had embroidered hand cloths for us with our initials, like over the top. So going in there, just kind of this great feeling. And then I had designed a simulation. It was a full day simulation. And the day before I ran it, I hadn't slept. So first, just on European time, and I had just gotten there, and it just didn't work out to get any sleep. And then we pair up to do the simulation, and it was a new partner I hadn't worked with from another firm. They had brought in another consulting firm that we were partnering with, and he wasn't really prepared, and kind of I lost my assistant basically. And then there were some leaders. These are all European leaders of Starwood at the time. This is brand new. This is the rollout to the European side, area directors and higher. And there was some dissent. Apparently, some of them were not pleased about this thing called Lean Six Sigma and keen to have it go away. So I got the brunt of kind of this perfect storm, and had never seen this fail. My joke about the simulation was, you can't really break it. Even if it goes wrong, they never know. It's just a different teach point. It broke. It was a disaster. And I just took it so personally. I was so deflated, and it just took me down. And I remember the next day a group of us were getting together, and I didn't know everybody that we'd gone over with. And one of the guys was kind of on the more of the soft skills side, trying to help with organizational development with the leadership. I didn't know him very well. His name was Anton. And he just looked at me and he goes, "Oh, you've never bombed before." And I was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Everyone bombs. Like, you've just got to you got to get used to that. You got to learn from it." He just like, he took me and just put me back, kind of on the map. And that was over 20 years ago. He is still a fantastic colleague. He just attended one of my improv workshops. And I just realized, oh, first of all, it happens, and second of all, people are all around you there to support you. It's not the end of the world. And the client came back and said, "We did not set you up for success. We had no idea the sabotage that was going on there." I mean, the whole thing turned around in such a great way, and I realized just the community uh, that's there for you, but also to recognize it's okay to fail.
That's great work. I mean, oh, you bombed. That's awesome. I think everyone who's ever stood in front of a group and had to lead or teach at some moment has felt some level of insecurity. If you don't have that level of wanting to make sure and test that it's working through, you don't belong in front of that group of people because you're not learning with them. You're just you're talking to them, you're telling to them.
Mhm.
So I think that's a great story, and I love the way that your colleagues came around you and supported you with that, and that the customer figured out that they didn't set you up for the most successful moment. I'm curious, after you went through that, did you do anything differently in trying to like feel out dissent or to try to get a temperature for where things were with the client before you got there, or even when you started?
Yeah, the question we always have is, are the natives friendly? Like, what are we walking into? I would say definitely do temperature checks, or did temperature checks more in earnest. I worked hard to make sure any compatriot I had with me felt supported and prepared to be the assistant. I learned how to take melatonin and get on a
Sleep.
European schedule much faster. But yeah, a lot of things changed since then. Thanks for
Oh,
asking.
you learned, right? I think it's a great question to ask in any project that you're starting when you're uh, talking it through with the stakeholder and you're kind of building out that charter, you're building out like the beginning groundwork for what you want to do. I think it's entirely fair to ask the question, who's not going to be happy about this, or
Yeah,
who is working against the success of this endeavor,
right.
and it provokes thought for them as well, right? Well, so you've been around the world, you've been in lots of different groups, and you've been teaching this lean and continuous improvement thing that we pursue. Is there a pet peeve or a behavior that you frequently see being done wrong or applied wrong?
I love this question. Um, it's the flip side of what I see as my mission, which these two questions really help crystallize for me why I am so against acronyms. And some people laugh at me, but I've actually asked a lot of people this question, just sort of how do acronyms help? How do they not help? And what they are, they create a club. If you know what the acronym means, you're in the club. And as you know, we bring a lot of acronyms with us. We come in with SIPOCs and, you know, Luca, like we come in with all these um, acronyms that not everybody knows, and then we learn them. Like we exchange them with our clients. Our clients then, you know, talk about TPS forms and whatever the heck they have, and we've got to figure out what they mean. Now, if you are in a situation like an ER or the military, acronyms can save your life because you are part of a private club. You are part of a group that all know the same acronyms, and you're doing it for speed, and speed saves lives. Now, the rest of us, is it really that hard to spell the word out? And I think it's actually a measure of kindness. It's also neuroscience. When you are reading a word, your brain is actually taking every single letter and interpreting what that letter means and then puts the word together. Happens fast, especially, you know, after you learn your alphabet. It starts moving. But now you have an acronym, you are doing another layer of translation, and it's unnecessary. So I make it a habit to spell words out all the time. I just don't use them. And if somebody uses one I don't know, I go, can you tell me what that means again?
Just ask. You just repeat the letters back to them and have this look of confusion, like LSAT, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've seen it in my career in meetings where like cross functional meetings where in the same organization but two different departments are using the same acronym, but it means two completely different things. And the
Yes.
meeting has gone on for 5 or 10 minutes, and you say, "Stop! What does this mean to you?" And they say it, and then, so is that what you thought it was? And they shake their head, and you have to reset. I mean, because it's uh, words matter, right?
Yeah.
Karen Martin says that all the time. Says, words matter.
Actually, she's right. She's got a piece in her Clarity First. She talks a little bit about acronyms and what they can do. The example I use is CVS, right? The drugstore chain. Any idea what CVS stands for?
I have no idea what CVS stands for, but I'm sure
Actually,
store is something. I hope.
it's true. It's store. It's customer value stores. I worked with them for a little bit, and they added the word health at a certain point to the logo because they wanted to have something that meant something. Because the other thing that acronyms do, they kind of deaden. They don't mean anything, right? They lose their kind of weight. And import.
I've been in parts of organizations and worked with organizations that in the onboarding, you get this list that you have to memorize of all the different acronyms. And, people would be amazed. Some of the most famous brands in the world love to try and shrink things down to 4 or 5 letters, right? Whatever
Yeah,
they can. And
yeah.
it adds to layers of confusion, and it's not lean thinking.
You just mentioned another one, which is the organizations. It also adds to the silos, because the silos, as you just said, you've got this whole long list, but there's probably, marketing's got theirs, and tech support's got theirs, and HR's got theirs. So it starts to it separates us.
Good advice. What what do you consider the most important thing that you've learned in your career journey so far?
Most important thing, uh, I think it's that leaders need help growing their people. That we're always torn between get her done and direct, like go do, and or build those problem solvers, build that army, uh, help people learn, help people grow their skills. uh, it's conscious effort. It's often counterintuitive, but just learning that leaders need help with that.
Uh, if you don't develop your people, essentially you become the answer person, and then they just come to you for answers, and you become the roadblock in the process.
Yes,
So,
yes.
what piece of advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in their lean or continuous improvement journey?
What worked for me when I was just starting out was making myself into a girl Friday. You could be a guy Friday. That find people who are doing the thing you want to do and say, I will assist you. I will come, and I'll do scut work. I'll, set tables. I'll, put name tags up, whatever. I'll flip charts, whatever you need, assuming we'll all be able to go on site again in the not too distant future. And some of us are already there. Then, you know, be that helpful person and just get a feel for how things work and dive in. Say if you see an opportunity where I could, deliver something, or I can take this little piece and do it. But I did that with as many people as I could, and I just put the word out. I'm ready to be helpful. Just call me up. And at the time when I was working, I'd take days off. I'd take weeks off, and that really jump started my ability to dive right into first training and then consulting.
What I love about that story is you took a place of humility, and in a humble way you said, "I just want to help. Where can I help, and where can I fit in?" Rather than trying to define the parameters of where you wanted to fit in, you just wanted to be in, and that's important. I think a lot of people could take that to heart. Um, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe a little bit further along in their professional career, a journeyman continuous improvement professional? What would you say to them?
I would say stay busy. Don't get a certification and okay, we're done. Cross that box. Always apply. Always be seeking out that other way of doing something. Challenge yourself. Just be putting things into practice as often as possible. Don't segment that. Quality is the thing we do on Thursdays.
So, other than the Problem Solver's Toolkit, what is the favorite book that you would like to recommend to folks?
Thank you for acknowledging my favorite book would be my own, but actually, there's lots of books I love. The book that's top of mind right now is Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn by Katie Anderson and Isao Yoshino. And I have a real attachment to this book for a number of reasons. I met both Katie and Isao on a Japan study trip a couple years ago. So I got to travel with Mr. Yoshino. And then Katie pulled me in to help her early on, just with feedback and input on early drafts of the book. So got very involved in it and just really enjoyed that process and just the result. The talk about humility, just an incredible human being Mr. Yoshino is, and the um, his ability once again to pivot, to take what he's offered and go with it. Not getting what you want, although he was driven, but he used what he was dealt, and he always was generous of spirit. He always looked out for those learning from him, and that is just, it's a real sense of grace, I think, that he has.
I am a big fan of Katie and Mr. Yoshino. I It hasn't been released yet, but by the time that this is released, it would have been released. I actually interviewed Katie last week for the podcast, and it was a fun conversation. All right, we are just talking about the book and her Mr. Yoshino stories, and just it's really refreshing when you see someone who is passionate and authentic about the work that they're doing.
I am with you.
So, I know that magic wands don't exist. We've figured that out through a lot of trial and error and time and this work that we do. But if you did have a magic wand, what would be the first thing that you would try and fix with a group that you're working with?
I My usual inclination is just to get them to talk to other people. It feels like we talked about silos, but people don't even know who's in the cube next to them. They don't know what they do. So just simple things like, the process walks, the Gemba walks seem to be just immediate, not just eye openers on waste, but it builds relationships. And that's what I feel like needs to get fixed right away, is form a connection with the people in your world. Expand your world. Expand who you know. Get to know the people who do the thing after you do your thing. Like get in that world and learn it. So I know it's not a typical view of what a fix is, but that to me needs fixing whenever I go somewhere.
I completely agree with that, and I think that as people start to think about doing gimbal walks or process walks, like setting that out as a goal ahead of time of saying, I want to, this is what I want to learn and who I want to meet is important. I've seen in organizations where they say they're doing gimbal walks, you go out and it's the gimbal walking dead. I mean, they're just ambling around. There's not anything of value coming out of it. It's just more of a ceremony. And I think that um, the benefit you get from those process walks is by understanding people and how they fit into the process and not just checking a box.
You're
Good
here.
answer. So I know that you're busy and you've got some really cool things coming up with some different courses. But how can people connect with you if they want to learn more about what you do or if they have a question for you, Elizabeth?
You can connect with me by email. That's Elizabeth, and I spell it with an S, or at least my parents did, and I'm just going with it. Elizabeth at JIT Cafe. Here I am using an acronym after railing against it.
Huh.
Just in Time Cafe, but we shortened the email JITCAFE.com. So that's Elizabeth at JITCafe.com. You could also come to our website. That's JITCafe.com. You can reach me on Twitter if that's your MO, and I am at Consult Swan for Twitter, and then LinkedIn. You can find me. Same thing. It's Elisabeth Swan, which if you ever watch the Pirates of the Caribbean, that's Keira Knightley's character. So also got a background in piracy, but I think she spells it with a Z.
So, well, can you talk to us about the upcoming course at UC Santa Davis or
Thank
UC
you.
San
Yeah,
Diego? Excuse me.
UC San Diego. UC San Diego, Tracy and I are running the Lean Six Sigma Leader, and this is addressing kind of what you and I were talking about, which is how to help people lead these armies of problem solvers, how to grow them, how to be a supportive leader, how to learn what's best for you to take on versus what your people are to take on. It's been an incredibly popular course that starts in June. So if you're interested, come join us.
And then we have an improv course, correct?
Yes,
And when you say improv, it's not getting and doing stand up, is it?
it's funny. Stand up, it's scripted, right? So people get up in front of a microphone they work hard not to sound scripted, but stand-up comedians are work very hard on their jokes. Improv is making stuff up, so you have no script, but improv is structured. We actually call them structures that you use to follow, and there's lots of rules to it. But what I love about improv, I did this 100 years ago. About 5 years, I performed for ImprovBoston, and improv is problem solving on stage. It's also treating people with total positive regard. Everything they say, your response is yes and. And if you think about lean is respect for people. So improv is very, to me, supportive and has supported me throughout my career, helped me launch my career of lean. So the improv workshop I pull together, it's 2.5 hours. You do practice improv. You learn kind of what the structures are underneath it, and everyone practices it. And it's not about being funny, but it ends up being incredibly funny. Nobody's trying, but these are hysterical. But you learn good techniques to be flexible, think on your feet, respond in the moment, which we have to do. That's part of our world. We're all improvising. We might as well get good at it. So that's coming up in July. You're very good at asking me. That's it. I'm off on a tangent, but that's coming up in July, the next public workshop. So absolutely reach out to me. I'd love to have people join that.
That's great. And I'll include links to all of those, including your website and how to reach you on Twitter and LinkedIn and the show notes page. Elisabeth, I appreciate you giving time to this podcast and sharing your experiences with our podcast community. And genuine thank you.
It's been a total pleasure, Chris. Great to meet you.
You as well. Thank you. I really want to thank Elisabeth for being a guest on the podcast today. I know I learned a lot from our conversation, and I hope you found value in our conversation as well. Links to our upcoming workshop and improv are on the show notes page. Be sure to go to leanleadershippodcast.com and look at the show notes page to learn more about how to connect with Elisabeth and to see more about the helpful resource links that she provides. I'd also like your feedback. If you have any questions, comments, or suggested guests for the podcast, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the podcast webpage, there's a microphone. Click it, leave us a message. If you leave a question, I'll try and connect you with one of our guests that may be able to help you. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, seek progress over perfection.